Hello, welcome to season 2 of DJV on Fire. I'm your host, David Joshua Vales. Producing, well, he set us up, but he's not here right now. My son, Jonathan Andrew Vales. We have two tremendous guests, as you can see on screen. Eric Christian Germain and Elizabeth Marie Germain are with us. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
I appreciate you being here. Kicking off our season 2 is exciting. We had a terrific season 1. Joe kicked us off in January, and ever since we've just been rolling week after week, meeting people. And you were the first guests of second place to be on the podcast. So, yeah,
Awesome.
there's lots of firsts here for our season 2. And we met on a Google call, the two of you, and my son was there, and you were reaching out to some young people. And it was a really good time, but you caught my eye. I went to sit in the back of the room. I'm like, oh, let's just sit while he watches the Google call. And all of a sudden, I'm in the middle of the Google call and learning about a lot of India, which you call home,
Right.
a little bit. But you told me, is it chi? What's the
Chai.
chai? I knew I even looked it up before I came on. I'm like,
That's okay.
make sure I say it correctly. Then I didn't. So chai, we made that at our house, and some other things. And Ethan was drawing all week, and he did not dance at all. But we made some other food, and so it was just an interesting experience, and it was great. And I'm like, wow, you get to meet people, and then you'll never get to meet them. And then here we are. You're on the podcast not too long later, not too long after that. But let's rewind a little bit, and let's just start with, you choose whoever wants to go first. How did you even get to know Jesus? Like, how did that even start for you?
Yeah, so it happened earlier. So chronologically, it happened earlier for me because I'm older. But I was raised in a Lutheran home, actually. So I grew up going to church a lot. So I knew a lot of the Bible stories, and I thought it was pretty cool. And I remember having a faith when I was a kid. I remember one particular summer day just walking out in the backyard, and I just remember praying and praising God just because I could. So that was a cool thing. Then in my junior high and senior years, I guess you could say I backslid and just really lost interest, kind of the kids ministry. I outgrew that, and there wasn't really anything for teenagers where I was at.
Mm-hmm.
And by the time I was in college, I was really far from the Lord. I still had that belief that God existed.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, I thought I was okay just because I believed that Jesus existed and died.
Yeah.
So my theology was a little bit off there. But I talked to a young lady who was a pastor's daughter. And I was talking to her because I was interested in dating her. But as it turned out, I was just sharing about how I was kind of lonely and depressed in life and was drinking alcohol in those days.
Mm-hmm.
And she just said something very simple but very profound. And she just said, Eric, your life is never going to be satisfying to you until you put God first. Like, stop making him just this thing that you believe in that you're kind of dragging through all of your garbage. Like, put him first. Actually,
Yeah.
why don't you try that? And that just resonated with me because of what I knew about God. And it was like, oh, of course, that's what I've been doing wrong all these years. And it was just like an overnight change. I mean, in my priorities, I just went to my mom. I said, Mom, I want to start going to church with you again. And as soon as I did that, just the Lord just started taking all this junk out of my life, and drinking and music. These things just had a grip on me. And that loneliness went away, that insecurity went away, and from there, man, it's just been a
Mm-hmm.
one-way trip to the Lord, and getting better every day.
That's awesome.
My story's similar, except it's not.
I wouldn't expect it to be.
Yeah, right. Same story. No, I came to know the Lord while I was in the circus.
Didn't see that coming.
No, yes, I did.
I was the lady training to swing on a rope by my hair. So, like everybody else, normal. No, and I had joined the circus. I also had a full-time job, and before I joined the circus, I had insomnia, so I couldn't sleep at night. And so when I joined the circus, they're like, "Listen, it's okay if you can't do these stunts. You can always be a clown." And I legit looked over at the clowns, and they were like tossing Kleenex up in the air and like kind of like whimsical, like, and you're like, I'm gonna try really hard. And I tried so hard, I started falling asleep at the wheel going home from circus practice. This is relevant because I started staying with my friend at their college dorm, and before I was a Christian, and he put on music when he would go to class, and I would like wake up and eventually go into work to my real job, and after circus practice the night before, and he put on music, and one day he put on this CD, and it had reminded me of a song that I had heard once in my childhood, and I was like, "Can I borrow this?" And so he let me borrow it after some threatening, and I listened to it for 3 months straight.
Wow.
And knew all the words, and I can't really sing, so I would sing in my apartment by myself and sing at the top of my lungs. And there was one day that I was singing a song. It's called "You're My Little Girl." You're the one that I created. There's no one in this world quite like you. When you're crying in the night, all you need to do is call me and I'll be there for you. And I was singing it, and it was like Jesus all of a sudden was in the room with me singing it to me, and was telling me, like, you're my little girl. Like, all the past relationships, those were wrong. Like, they didn't know how to love you well. I know how to love you well. I see your beauty. I see who you are. And it changed me. Like, it was like, somebody loves me.
Yeah.
I might have just shook the camera. But anyway.
You're not the first.
Okay. I'm like, what? And so I just felt like I couldn't keep that to myself anymore. Like, wait a minute. I need to know who this Jesus is. So I went to the church closest to me. And never stopped. And so I feel like everybody should know how much they're loved.
All right. Well, that's quite the kickoff. And
Yeah.
2 totally different stories, but
Totally.
pretty powerful. So take those 2 relationships, and then how did we meet? How did Eric and Elizabeth, the couple, begin?
Well, I was working after my circus days. I started traveling the world, and was working in schools trying to teach good kids how to make good choices.
Okay, good.
And also just kind of sharing like who I would turn to make a good choice, which is Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was really neat. I was working in schools in El Salvador, and one week, he came with a team of people, and with some youth, I think, and then that's how we met in El Salvador.
Yeah, I was.
It's a wild story.
I really felt like I wanted to give more of my time to serving the Lord.
Yeah.
And so I was working as a youth pastor in a church, and I love the adventure of going overseas and helping people.
Mm-hmm.
So we led a trip of youth and young adults to El Salvador, and had no idea who we'd be working with. Had a vague idea what we would be doing, some kind of church work kind of thing.
Now, were you a leader, or you were just part of the group?
I was the youth
You were in
pastor.
charge?
Yeah. I had someone else set up the trip.
Okay.
So.
Okay.
And I was the coordinator in country.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, all
so
right.
our team, she coordinated our team in terms of, helping set up hotels and travel and all that, what our itinerary would be. And I just thought she was really interesting and fun. And so she's also very memorable, right?
Yeah.
So I started.
I picked up on that in a half-hour Google Meet.
I don't do a lot of impressions of people, but I just felt like every once in a while, like there's just some people that are just like, oh man, I could totally do an impression of that person. So I was doing an impression of her for my team, and then I started to feel bad. I was like, I'm not doing it to make fun of her, so I don't want her to hear that I was doing an impression and feel bad. And so I told her, I just said, hey, just so you know, just having fun with my team. I was doing an impression of you. And I did not expect what she said. And we were actually that morning getting ready to all load up onto a bus. And she said, well, why don't you wait till we all get on the bus, and then you can do it for everybody on the bus and see what they all think. See if they recognize who it is.
So we did it, and
You
it was
did it?
spot on. It was like, stop her. Like, oh no. And I was super red, and everybody was silent for a second, and then they were like, it's Liz! And because they called me Liz at the time. And so, yeah, so then my family's originally from Chicago, like the suburbs, and he's from Virginia. So I had to ask him to be my date at a wedding, and he flew from Virginia to Chicago. Actually, he really kind
I invited myself. I found out you needed a date for the wedding,
Oh my.
and I invited myself.
Oh wow.
it was great.
Yeah.
And then he asked me to be his girlfriend, and 4 days later, I left for Africa because I was
Oh,
supposed
boy.
to be still committed to my work. And then when I got back, he asked me to marry him. So I said yes and moved to Virginia. And now we live in India. What in the world?
Who are we?
Who are we?
Our,
Yeah.
our poor kids.
Praise the Lord.
So Africa, El Salvador. Where did you meet?
El Salvador.
El Salvador,
Mhm.
Virginia, Chicago, India. Any other places?
I mean,
Those are the significant places.
yeah.
Significant
We'll
places.
just go
Yeah.
with
Let's
that.
just- we don't have time. It's less than an hour show. So.
That's right,
Although we
that's
both
right.
were born in Washington State.
Which is just
Oh,
coincidental. But,
Yeah.
yeah,
yeah.
but
So we're both Seahawks fans, just saying.
Go Hawks.
Don't turn off the podcast if you
interesting, Washington. So I've never made it. I've traveled. First of all, out of the country, I've gone over the border to Canada just to say I've been in Canada. The Caribbean was part of our honeymoon 24 years ago, and then that's my extent. And I've driven all over the United States. My parents were ones that we would drive, so I've driven. Actually, when we first got married, Kaylee, my daughter, was 3 months old. We drove all the way to San Diego for our family wedding, and we've driven to Maine, we've driven to Florida, and Washington State. I've never made it to the corner.
Yeah,
It's probably my
beautiful.
last drive,
It's beautiful.
and obviously Alaska and Hawaii. But driving wise, yeah, Washington would be the next trip. Should I do? Have you ever done the trip all along the coast? Any kind of? Do you find yourself in California very often? Not really.
I've only been there once.
Yeah, not in a long time.
Not too much.
We drove from DC down to Orlando,
Okay.
and then we ended up flying up to Boston, and then drove from Boston down to DC. So so in 2 trips,
Two
we drove,
pieces.
we drove the whole East
Yeah,
Coast.
yeah.
But it really wasn't for fun. It was
Yeah.
work.
Yeah,
All
yeah.
work related.
This summer, though, we're trying to go out to Washington. And if you ever do get out there, definitely go whale watching. Try to go in August. Just saying. July, August. Whale watching.
So we did a whale watch in Maine.
Oh, ooh.
Cool.
Yeah, and it was in June, and it was about 35 degrees,
Oh.
and the boat's going 55 miles an hour.
Oh.
We did not see a whale, so it was probably the most miserable.
Sorry.
However, now I will take you up on the whale watching in Washington.
We saw a lot. We saw a lot of orcas.
Hopefully that's a little bit better. So it was not, and we should have taken. You see the people driving the boat, and they're, they're all wintered up, and it's June, so we're
Yeah.
like, oh, we got our flip flops. I did bring my sweater, and I'll be fine. And people were all sitting on the outside of the boat, and we went inside. My daughter again was only a few years old, and so I go, let's just stay on the inside of the boat. And as soon as I hit the 55 miles per hour, everybody flooded into the inside of the boat. I'm glad we got a seat. It was miserable for that, but hopefully the people do say when you go on a whale, if you see the whale, it's a once in a lifetime kind of. You just have to do it once and see it. So have you been?
I've not done whale watching.
Oh.
We did honeymoon in Alaska, and
Okay.
so we did some, Glacier Bay, and
Yeah.
I don't think we saw any whales. We saw eagles and glaciers, and
Yeah, the commercials with the water, and they like, this is what glacier water.
Yeah.
Like we totally did that.
Yeah.
So that we got in a helicopter and landed on a glacier.
Wow.
Anyway.
so travel has always been a part of our
Yeah.
journey, our story.
That's exciting. My parents did an Alaska trip. We have not though. So, how do you find? I mean, you got a young daughter, young son. How are you finding balance in all that travel, but in your work and everything else that you do in your life? We talked about, on the podcast. We talk about being mentally, physically, emotionally, and spiritually balanced. And sometimes you're heading one direction. And you're like, oh, wait, I was neglecting those 3, or I'm doing these 2, I forgot those 2. I mean, on a day-to-day, week-to-week, year-to-year basis, how are you finding yourself? I'm sure it's not easy, But how do you find that balance, or can you speak anything to it, or just recognizing that it's a daily struggle?
I know that we try to focus on those, right? So like even in quarantine, like in India in lockdown, we were just in a small apartment, and it was like, well, we're not walking anywhere. You
Mm-hmm.
got your step counter, and you're like, I'm up to 500 today. Like, oh no! And so we would like, all right, well, we can walk in the hallways, and so we marched down the 7 flights of stairs and marched back up, and we did that for a while and try to focus on that. But even with between work and our kids, it's like we do like kid date nights.
Yeah.
Which is really funny when we go to restaurants and I'll have a date with my son
Mm-hmm.
and look across the aisle, Eric's having a date with his daughter.
That's a good idea,
and
though.
then we're like, we'll pay for their bill, and they're like, do you know them? Like, yes, I know them. Anyway, but that's something that's always been fun, and even just making sure that they have focus time,
Mm-hmm.
because like they can tell us their Sunday school lesson, right? But if I'm not listening, they know that. They
Mm-hmm.
pick up on that, right? And they'll stop in the middle of the story and stop telling the story, and you're still like,
Yeah.
So like, and they're like, so we try to like, hold on, wait until I can listen, and that's like a phrase that we say because you're not always able to listen,
Mm-hmm.
right? You're like distracted or doing something else, or they're coming up and you're like typing an email out. And you're like, please just let me finish. I don't know what I was going to say. Never mind.
Yeah.
But we always try to say, like, hey, I want to listen to you. Give me a moment,
Mm-hmm.
and then take that time to come back to them and listen to them. And even traveling, we really like to have fun. Like, they've gotten to do, I don't know, there's things that you could spend money on, right? Like a Nintendo Switch for your kids. Right? Those are cool.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing wrong with them. Hey, that's great entertainment. Great entertainment. And then, but sometimes we're like, you know what? We're not going to do that right now because we'd rather, do other adventures with you. And so they've gotten to do like sand dune stuff.
Yeah.
And, so we'll kind of hold back money so that we can spend it on like adventurous kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And even at the birthdays, we're like, would you rather have a big gift or a big party? And let them choose. So, and then stick to it, right? Because that's hard.
Yeah.
So this time we got our son like a $13 Lego set, and then he wanted a party, so we went and took him to see his best friend in Missouri, for crying out loud. But anyway, so we try to really balance it out and do devotions with them.
We do devotions with them. We read a lot with our kids. That's something that they look forward to every night at bedtime, whether we're on the road in a hotel or whether we're at home. Is about an hour before lights out is brush your teeth, get in the pajamas, and we do bedtime stories. So our kids, it's helped their vocabulary. Actually, turns out reading is actually good.
Yeah.
Who knew?
I was not a reader when I was growing up.
Yeah, and I wasn't much either. But so we limit the screen time, and we give them a little screen time during the week, but they really love that reading time, and so that's one way. But honestly, we involve our kids in just about everything we do. So if we're traveling or going to an event or having people over, we're very open with our kids about what we're doing and why we're doing it. We really don't ever say because I said so. I got that a lot when I was a kid.
Yeah.
Why? Well, because I said so.
I think I said that this week. Anyway, keep going. No, yeah.
But
balance. It's balance.
We've always sought to. I mean, we realize, look, we live kind of a unique life. We live in India. We travel a lot, and I just felt like the more that our kids can be on board with what we're doing and why we do it, the more they can understand it.
Mm-hmm.
They don't always get a vote on what we're going to do. I mean, a lot of times, they just have to do it because we're doing it. But we do try to put the effort in to show them the respect of saying, look, I understand this affects you, so I want you to understand why it's important to us.
Mm-hmm.
And what I found out is when we communicate to our kids that something's important to us, they accept it and they say, oh, okay, well then it's important. They may not always enjoy it, but we make sure they always understand why. And then we, try to meet them on the other side with some bonuses for good behavior. And,
they really like ice cream.
Yeah, I like ice cream. So.
Favorably.
So just involving our kids in the conversation and in the activities that we do. I've seen people who work in jobs, maybe in the church or in ministry, who resent what their parents do because they feel they're competing with their parents' time. Well, we don't ever want our kids to feel that way.
Right.
And so we involve them. We find ways to involve them, not just drag them along, but give them something to do, a responsibility to do.
Yeah, I think some of the harder things that we deal with are like moving a lot and them having to make new friends and having to leave even just stuff behind because we can't, like, obviously you can't pack up your entire house from India and bring it all the way to America.
Yeah.
So it's like if we get 8 suitcases, Eric and I could take all the 8 suitcases and be like, I put your clothes in, I promise. But we give our kids an entire suitcase of, all right, you pack your favorite toys. And, you know, we'll see when we get to the States, like what we can, you know, fill in, right? Or whatever. But obviously then all the relatives in America are like, I haven't seen you in 4 years. You know, like, it's like and our kids are fine. But, you know, I think they sometimes, because fun fact, since we've been married, we have yet to live in one place more than 2 years and 3 months. And we've been married 13 years. So we've moved a lot. And usually there's a lot shorter periods, and so our kids have done that too, and they've been homeschooled, they've gone to private school,
they're in public school.
Yeah, they're doing virtual learning, or now they're in person, you know, all this. So they're
very adaptable now.
That's good. Even the challenges of, we've been in the same house for I'm not bragging. We've been in the same house for 13 years, and my kids range from 11 years old, so very close to your daughter. He's homeschooled, and then he started out at the same school my other kids went to, private K through 8, and my other 3 kids are 16, 19, 21 now, but they graduated from 8th grade in a very private. Their graduating class was 5 people. But that's kind of the private part, and then they all went to the public high school that I teach at, and so now a couple of them are virtual now, and some of them are going into person, and then Ethan's homeschooled, and so we're seeing that across the board still today that the importance. What I like about what you said was finding the balance, keeping them involved, having those conversations. My son just came home from college for a day, and I made sure we went out for a hamburger, and I just I go, when you live with me, I could say, how's your day? And then if you had something to say, you'd either say it, or I could tell by your attitude that I got to pry a little bit. But that was my right as a parent to try to figure it out. And it was your right to be like, do they really care, or is he just trying to make small talk? And I go, but when you're in college, you don't have that daily chance to release. So I know that sometimes it could build up for you. So we had a pretty serious conversation about the importance of having parents that can talk and be truly there, as you said, as you're having that conversation, not just making small. How was your day? And then let me finish doing my work. So I appreciate that fact of it. And you're starting him, so young, and it's always part of your decision-making process is to keep them involved and feeling like they're not. Oh, by the way, we got to bring them with. Right? Yes. We got to. No, they're part of the experience. When you have, I see your card here, and it's the 4. It's not just the 2 of you. It's not just Eric. It's the 4 of you there, and it's the life experience for all of you. So I'm sure it's not easy to balance. You talked about being in the circus. I'm picturing like juggling. One thing I said to my volleyball team, I coach girls and boys volleyball, but I said, I kept 19 players, which is a big team. Normally you keep 12 to 15. And I said, some days you'll feel like I'm not talking to you, but when I'm talking to you, I'm trying to get that. If you can imagine at the spinning plates, and you see 10 plates, and someone starts spinning a plate here, then they get the next one spinning, but then he's got to go back and talk to that plate. And I go, it's tough as a coach to be talking to everybody and to keep that balance. But if you think of it as life, and sometimes you feel like, oh, I've got to work on that part of my life, or I've got to work on that part. And if I got all 10 things going, I don't want anything to crash. And life can get busy, and you feel like, how am I supposed to keep all these things going? Can you speak to that craziness, in a time in your life where you had to address the craziness and figure out, okay, we've got to step back
Mhm.
and you talked about maybe in your own, you purposefully, you kind of spoke in years, but like you always try to find a time where and now it's just trying to like refocus and revive and kind of like, there's a time for everything, as even in Genesis, right? Day of rest. So do you ever forget that? And then all of a sudden you cut yourself. Oh man.
Yeah, right. Like it's
Yeah.
you would never forget that.
A hard thing, something Elizabeth and I have in common is we have a servant's heart.
Mm-hmm.
And, I don't say that to brag, but I'm 48. I know myself.
Yeah.
It's like, look, I realize what I get excited about is coming alongside someone and serving.
Yeah.
Come alongside the leader, carry their armor for them, be the armor bearers. And so we both have a heart to do that. And in the work that we do, in a lot of ways, we're both trying to do that. And there's just endless opportunities to serve. And when you serve and when you do a good job serving, you end up getting more responsibilities. Mm-hmm. Okay. And so,
which is great.
But part of the challenge is that, you don't want to say no.
Right.
Because it's like, well, if I don't do it, it's not going to get done. And it needs to get done. And so we're always trying to involve other people and find people that we can,
Mm-hmm.
delegate things to. But sometimes, those responsibilities just accumulate faster than we can delegate them accordingly. So it's not that we're afraid to let go, but it's just, it's important things that need to get done. And I'm detail oriented. And so it's not just here, you do that. It's like, you do that, but I need to make sure you're going to do it right and do it well. And so let me talk you through how to do it well. And so, yeah, the work does get overwhelming. So for me, I have just realized that, the world went on just fine without me for thousands of years or millions of years, depending on what you believe about the world, how it was created. But
let's get into that. No, I'm just kidding.
You know what? The world's going to go on just fine without me after I'm gone. And I'm, as much as I feel like I am making a difference and adding value, it's going to be okay. And so I tend to maybe try to understate, the importance of me being personally involved in doing everything. So, sometimes there's things that don't get done. And I'm just like, you know what? God's going to take care of that,
Mm-hmm.
Or it didn't need to get done.
Mm-hmm.
If it was really important, whoever needs it done will find someone else that will get it done.
Mm-hmm.
And so just being secure in that and not feeling insecure, like my value is derived from doing all these things, and I have to do all these things and keep all these plates spinning, and then I freak out if I can't get it done. It's just like, well, plate just fell over there. Well, okay. It was actually a Frisbee and it didn't break, so it's okay.
Yeah, oh, nice.
But just trusting the Lord to say, look, let me do everything I can, and I know I'm worthless if I burn out, because then I'm doing nothing.
Yeah.
So I've really got to keep a pulse on, how well I'm doing and what my capabilities are.
Yeah.
That's pretty good. For me, to me, stop being so accessible,
Mm-hmm.
where it's like, oh, Elizabeth will do it or Eric will do it, and she's like, sometimes you have to practice saying no, which can be hard, but at the same time, it's like that actually gives other people the opportunity to like step in and take, carry the weight, carry the load, and then they feel important too, right?
Yeah.
So let them feel important. That's cool.
I like how you said it's been thousands, millions. It's been more than a few years we've been on this earth. But there's a double-edged, because some people think, well, because of that, then I don't have to do anything.
Right.
But there's a better understanding, and I've come to it, I would say, earlier this year. Like, when you understand that even wants me to do my part more. Yes, because it doesn't affect, but it makes me want to do my part more. I want to do what the Lord has put me on this earth to do in the short amount of time that I have, with the realization that, yes, regardless, it's going to be. Someone recently in my family retired, and then, what happens when you retire? They just replace you, right? They just replace you, and so
sometimes rather unceremoniously.
Correct, and realizing that, and how do you put the value on what you're doing? Because you are valuable, and and you were there for the company and you put in your time, but
Oh yeah.
but it's going to continue, and it's for God's purpose and for his timing, and it'll all happen, and your job is to just trust in that and believe that, like you said, it's for someone else to do at that point. And it's tough for a lot of people. They want to just hold on tight, but you have to be able to let that go. I liked your twist on my plates. Is like, it was a frisbee and it wasn't meant for, maybe it wasn't meant for you to spin that one.
We face that a lot in traveling back and forth between, like, so we'll go live in India for about 4 years at a time, and we come back and the world went on without us. I mean, how dare they?
Yeah.
But that's a reality, and it is tough. And it's like, we're part of a community in our home church, and we have responsibilities, and you come back and you find that you're right. I mean, other people are doing what you did, and they've got their relationships, and it's like, man, I feel like a stranger again. There's new faces and people that don't know that I was ever a part of this community. So it is humbling, but it does keep a right perspective on it. That I mean, and I've been in my journey in life. I've been, I think, through all those thought processes. One process of, I have to do everything. I have to maximize my value in this world. Every minute has to be scheduled out. And what's the most I can jam, the most value I can jam into life. All the way to the other side of, what, the world, it's fine. No one would notice if I disappeared, so I don't have to do anything. And then for me, what it has come down to is, whatever your hand finds to do, do it as serving the Lord. Work, whatever work you do it for the Lord and not for men. And it's, God is not a driver of people, a driver of sheep. But at the same time, the work and the contribution that I can make becomes my worship to the Lord. So it is something that I volunteer. It's not something I'm compelled to do, but at the same time, I want to do it.
Can I just add to that?
Yes.
Like during COVID, right? I think it was a really good time for people to calm down. Or just like even us to just chill in your house and like not go around doing 100 different things or trying to get all these things done. Not trying to take your kids to soccer club. Not trying to take them to also and piano and swim class and all. Like I think for most of particularly America, like it was like be still. Just be. Can you do that? Do you remember what that's like? And now, okay, so things are opening up and people are getting going, and there's this like buzz of like, ooh, can I do that? Ooh, I'm getting vaccinated. And then there's still like, we don't necessarily need to go to where we were, because then you do lose out. Like if you were somebody that was so active and so like, just maybe don't go out to that extreme, but feel free to come out, and meet with other people and to be friends with other people and, wear a mask, social distance, great. Do a Zoom call with your friends, but like, don't forget that we are supposed to be connected. We are supposed to be in a community. So however you're going to reach out, like you said, your podcast is like about being around the table and getting to know people and stuff like that. Well, like it's both ways, the people that are watching, like people want to know you too.
Yeah,
people want to know you too. Okay, sorry.
And important, relationships happen in the margins of our life, and that's where important. And by margins, I mean, your 9 to 5 is your work, but it's what happens after that, and it's I'm not doing. What do you do when you're not doing anything? Who are those people that you hang out with? What are those conversations that come up organically? And that's where so much ministry happens. It's not happened in a scheduled way. And so if we schedule out our whole life, we just make our margins so narrow that there's really what we think is the scheduled work is doing all of God's work. Find out all Jesus' miracles happened like as interruptions. And when you schedule out all your margin, you're just scheduling out opportunity for God to really do some cool things.
Those are all great, and that's going to be a great segue there. Have you ever read Bob Goff? Do you know Bob Goff at all?
No.
Love Does is one of his books, but he talked about he had to change his perspective of his work as to that wasn't his calling. It was fundraiser for what God wanted him to do, and then he goes out and he ministers. But his perspective on this 9 to 5er is so I don't want to go. Well, it's just treat it as a fundraiser, and your attitude changes a little bit. That's because it's just going to give me the funds to go do what God wants me to do, which is kind of like outside of your margins there. So, and then to your point, you mentioned the reset button, kind of with the COVID, was being able to just slow down and just take a breath, and the world slow down. And I mentioned my son going away to college. He graduated high school, so that's the time he won't get back. But my wife and I relished that we got to have dinners. When was the last time we had, with 4 kids, that we were able to just sit down and have family dinners? It's been a while, because we had dance classes and volleyball and basketball and taekwondo and swimming, and so it was a great forced. Let's slow down, and then we don't have to pick it back up at that speed. Let's figure out what is the importance of that. When you spoke, when we were on that Google call just a few months ago, one of the things you talked about was, building up those relationships, sitting at the table, is really how things get done. It's that's the way I don't know if that was your words, but it was like, this is what has to happen. I mean, you can't, if you want things to. This is my take, and you could say what your take, because you spoke it again at Sunday service. You talked about tables again, but my take is my job's not to change anybody. When I had my transformational year in 2020, it was a choice of my own to go about each day living as to the fullest. And was I hitting my mental, physical, emotional, spiritual goals each day? And if not, tomorrow I'm going to adjust a little bit. Or if I missed one, I'm going to make sure I focus on that one the next day. But I don't think anybody could have told me, do this. And I go, we want freedom. We want our choices. And so I think what's important is you can develop relationships. So then all of a sudden someone's like, what are you doing over there? Right? So what's this you were doing? How did you lose some weight? How did you seem like you're reading more. And it wasn't me getting up on a preacher box. It was just sitting down and having a conversation with people. And for a year, it was just about myself. And then all of a sudden in 2021, it's been a little bit different. And people are asking questions, and I'm able to just sit at a table. I mentioned one of our little bits, we call it DJV, Dinner with DJVs. We just sit around the table. We record the podcast, but we just had dinner together. And so when you said that in the Google Meet to the young people, I perked up. I'm like, that's it right there. And wherever you are in the world, it wasn't just about you guys travel the world, but I'm thinking about my little hometown right here. I go, that's how it's built, or that's how it starts. That's how change happens. It's having relationships. So I know you just gave you just spoke 40 minutes on it not too long ago. But give me the condensed version of how, because now you've said it twice, because I heard it in the phone call and now you've said it in the message. So clearly that's an important staple for you.
Yeah. Influence doesn't happen so much from a pulpit as it does around a table. If you really want to make a deep connection with someone, that's not going to be through information. It's going to be through shared experiences in personal, intimate settings, right? And one of the things I talked about today was, we don't really trust strangers. We don't really allow them to influence us so much. In fact, if a stranger comes up to you with a clipboard and says, hey, I want to tell you some things. Can I get a few minutes of your time?
Yes.
It's like, I don't know you.
Yeah.
I'm busy. I've got things. But if your brother or close friend or family member comes up to you and says, hey, I want to talk to you for a few minutes. Can we sit down, at lunch and talk? Boom. I mean, that's where something big can happen. And we can't treat the gospel as though it's just information. And we tend to do that because it doesn't cost us as much. It doesn't cost me anything to give you, 4 points of Romans Road and say, take this home and go think about it. Go look up these verses. I'll see you next week. That doesn't cost me much. What costs me, because my life has a limited number of days and hours and minutes. So what really costs me, where the sacrifice really is when I'm willing to give up my afternoon consistently, several times a week, to hang out with you and just go through life, not with an agenda, not a training program or a class, just hey, what are you doing? Let's do it together.
Yep.
And that's, I believe, how Jesus made a difference in people's lives, and we're called to the same thing.
And like live showing grace every day, right? Like you could hold up a sign that says "I love purple," right? And be like, "I love purple, I love purple." But the people that are in your life every day, whether you're holding the sign or not, if you're wearing purple, they're gonna be like, obviously she loves purple.
Yeah.
Like she's wearing purple every day. Like what is that about? You know, and in the same way, like when you're spending more and more time with people, they're gonna know what you love.
Yeah.
And you know, if you're sitting around talking about, I don't know, inappropriate movies, they're gonna think that that's what you love.
Yeah.
Right. But if you're sitting around and you know not every conversation, not every moment, but you know every time that they're with you, if Christ comes up, they're gonna know that you love Christ, right? And they're gonna know I can start asking questions to those people. You know, I can start, you know, like those people, they must know something about them.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like I want to know too. And oftentimes we do find around the table that you feel more comfortable, more relaxed.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, let me ask you this. Let me ask this about your life. You know, so it's a really non-confrontational way, right? Of just like getting to know people and just being in people's lives, and like you said, giving up your time. That can be really hard, and maybe learning like cooking skills.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not a great cook, and I was like, what am I doing marrying a pastor? Because I can't cook, I can't sing, I can't bake cookies. Like this is like I can't play piano. You know, all the difficult things. But I think it was worth learning for the gospel. It was worth learning to share that with other people.
But that last line, you know, when we sit down, and I mentioned how we like you won't be able to change people, but like I want to sit down just to have people. I want to learn, right? That's important. Is that I learn and I'm open and I'm listening, and they won't talk to you unless they know that you're listening at that table. I mean, they could get on social media and say whatever they want, and they don't care if people are listening or not. But when you sit down at a table, and it even goes back to you when you say you're about your kids, when they know you're listening, it's a different feel, and there's a different relationship there when they know you're listening. So I found, I wish. I mean, we're in our 40s, sir.
Yeah.
But I
Me
wish.
too, just barely.
Okay. I was just going to guess for the early 30s. But as my wife. But it's, you know, it's like if I would have known that sooner, how are my relationships sooner? And it's not to sit and be like, oh, woe is me, why didn't I? But like moving forward, like how much time now can I spend learning about other people and having those relationships and having just I texted a guy and I said, hey, you want to go out? I was hungry myself and I had a long day. And then I said, hey, why don't you want to meet up? He's like, what day? I go, right now. You know? And he was shocked and he was happy. It was like, I was glad that I could do that, just to invite him for dinner. And we didn't talk about anything huge. You know what I mean? It was like, oh man, I've had a day. And then he's like, me too. And we just had it. But just to be able to sit at that table has been huge. And that's something I think I'll stick with this year. Meeting you in March and now like doubling down here, hearing it again has been important. I have some quotes that that I share each week. So we ran through them once really quick. So I'm going to hit them again. And so you could say, good one. You could expand on it if you like, let me just tell you a quick story about our lives in that quote, or however you want. You could be like, what did you write with that? So here's the first one. Your best ability is availability. And these quotes just come from all over just different books, self-help, sometimes podcasts. I listened to a ton of podcasts last year. Just something stuck out and I wrote it down. This year, my job is to try to figure out I got to go back and figure out who said all these things because there's some good ones. But your best ability is availability.
And I think before we started, you were like, this one, you know, kind of defines you guys. And I'm like, yes, it does. Because even coming here was like, oh, but the kids are in school. And it was all like, but they're going to be okay if they miss a couple of days. And I'm not advocating for missing school. But, you know, like it was like, hey, we really want to be a part of this. We want to, you know, come and spend time with you guys and, you know, get to know you guys and love you more. and vice versa. So we like to be available because you don't know what God's going to do, right?
Mm-hmm.
So man plans out his steps, but the Lord directs it.
And God is the one that really adds the value anyway.
Mm-hmm.
I think sometimes we have an overinflated sense of what we bring to the table, and the older I get and the more I know myself, I'm just less and less impressed with myself.
Yeah.
But the best thing I have to offer the Lord is not my wisdom or any strength or anything. It's just being available.
Yeah.
God will work. God will speak through a donkey.
Mm-hmm.
If
You're
if that donkey's available, so
Yeah.
I can be available. And that levels the playing field. No one has an excuse.
Yeah.
No one can say, well, I can't do that. I'm not a great preacher, so I can't go and do this or that. I can't. I'm not a big strong person, so I can't do these things or whatever. Everybody has the same ability to be available, and it's a choice, and that's what God looks for. It's a great equalizer.
Absolutely. And that's where you have that overarching, it's been a long time, but when you say, the kids are going to miss a couple of days, well, what about the experience, right? It came back to you when you asked that question, probably it was like, well, this is going to be a good experience for our family. So I find myself asking those questions a little bit more, or when my son's getting a bad grade, it's like, well, in the overarching, this one little hiccup for him. Obviously, it's important, but let's look at it in the big picture and what can we learn from it, and then let's not beat ourselves up for a year and a half because you had a bad test grade.
Right.
Energy begets energy,
That's super true.
and so it's always tough to get it rolling. But we feel like once you get it rolling, then you just got to fuel the fire. Just keep fueling it, and with that, you could start other fires. Was kind of my word for that day.
So if you're not a morning person, you need to marry a morning person.
Or drink a lot of coffee.
And feed off their energy.
Yeah, I mean, my wife and I are opposites, but it's not in the morning, after evening. I mean, we're both kind of evening people.
Yeah.
So one of the challenges last year was I forced myself to wake up early. I just had to do it. And it started in September, and I said every school day through the end of the year because it's tough. Now, are you guys opposites? Are you morning and night or no?
I think we're a little bit in sync because we work together so much that we're kind of getting up at the same time.
Yeah.
We're just going to bed at the same time.
Yeah.
So
he does say sometimes. Sometimes I wake up grumpy, and sometimes I let her sleep. Because I'm not as awake in the morning and full of life. But he drinks the coffee. If I drink coffee, I would go at a speed that's unknown. So I don't drink coffee.
Does tea work the same way, or do you drink?
Sometimes. I don't drink tea. Yeah.
No,
I just get going. Just drink some water.
All things are difficult before they are easy. Has that ever happened?
Oh. That's one I need to put on the fridge for our kids.
Yeah.
Because, they want to be instantly great at something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, right?
So we sign them up for soccer, and they get out on the field and find out they're not automatically great at soccer and immediately discouraged. Sorry, kids, I'm going to throw you under the bus if you're watching this later in life. Hopefully you've gotten therapy by now. But it's like, no, you're not going to be great at it immediately. Yeah. You've got to stick with it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, who wants to stick with something you're not great at, right? So it's like that's where the character building comes in.
I know you're from Washington State, but my write-up was on Michael Jordan. Have you heard of him? We were blessed in Chicago with Michael Jordan basketball experience, and so that was my example because last year they had his docu-series on his run with the Chicago Bulls, and so I used him. Do you think he just was born that way, or do you think he put in hours and hours? And every time a year ended and he was stinky at something, he worked all summer to get better at that one thing. How bad do you want it? I'm talking about everything, not just sports or working out. I'm talking about peace, patience, nutrition, education, job. I'm talking about new things, playing guitar, piano, drawing, painting, writing, reading, gardening, fixing cars, cooking. You can do any of it. It'll be difficult at first. Everything always is before it is easy. So that was my write-up for that day, just as a reminder, even as adults, because we say our kids, and then it's like, well, how about me? I got a probably different as an example of that. So, and my kids now at first they were frustrated because I'd set, if they had a bad day, I would send them one of these things. Like, all right, Dad, can you just talk to me like a normal person? But now they get it. Now they kind of get it, and they're on it. I couldn't wait for success, so I went ahead without it. And it's the instant gratification again. Playing the guitar or learning a new thing. Like you said, you want to put it out there for the kids. I think I did that back to back on purpose because we're always looking for that instant. And it doesn't. Everything good in life, can we say that? Everything good in life takes time?
Yeah, there's a John Maxwell book. I think he calls it the success journey, and it's this whole idea that success is not a destination; it's found in your daily routine.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've always liked that. So
Yes.
I've never thought about success showing up. I've just thought about what are the steps, what are the things I should be doing now to to be the kind of person I want to be or to get where I want to get. Whether it's in investing little by little in finances, we all want a nice retirement someday, but are you investing a little bit today and tomorrow and the next day so that when someday comes, it's like, oh yeah, you did what you needed to do. So it's about what we do daily.
Yeah, that's good. I read a few John Maxwell. I probably still have 75 more to go to catch up to his series, but he's got some good ones.
After you read about 30 of his books, it's like they all sound the same.
I thought the same after 3, and I go, I probably should give a few more. But there's always something you draw from it.
No, it's true.
And they cross-reference a lot, so you're like, did he say that? Did I hear that one? And okay, so, but he does make good points, and that one specifically has been key. Stay moving always. If you want momentum, you'll have to create it yourself.
That's true. I mean, we've started a couple of programs and projects and businesses, and you're like, is this even going to work out?
Mm-hmm.
And then for a period it does, and then when that period's over, can you let go of it and keep going and start something else? So I think we've done that a lot, where you just pray and say, God, give me ideas. Just figure out what am I missing, or who else can help me with this, or who else. I don't know. Even just starting, we did like a kids celebration day, right? Instead of doing like a fall harvest event, right? And so we were like, we're going to do an event and call it Kids Celebration Day and celebrate kids. So like all around, there's going to be signs that are like, you're awesome, you're really cool, we love your talents, whatever. And the first year it was very small, and there was like 12 games, like carnival games. And then, it was like, all right. And then it was like next year it was like, so who else wants to help? And it kind of turned into this really huge thing where there was like rented inflatables and, like 35 different games, and everybody bought candy for the prizes and everything. And it was like, if you want it to gain momentum, involve others.
Yeah, that's good.
So.
That's good. All right, so your last quote happens to be the theme of the podcast. So it's from Jim Quick. So everybody that knows, let me get my camera on here. Everybody that knows I ended with this, but I'll let you speak to it because I mentioned that first quote reminded me of you, and then this one reminds me of you. One life, just one. Why aren't we running like we are on fire towards our wildest dreams? I get that. I'll use the word aura, but some people might shy against that word, but I just feel like that from your sense from your family is that you're trying to do that. You're trying to live it to the fullest, and whatever that may take you, wherever the Lord is leading you. It seems like you're up for it.
Yeah, I've always really been very missional in my life in terms of what am I supposed to be doing, and let's just go after that. It's so funny. There's a song that came out, I don't know, 15 years ago or something in the Christian music world, and the words are, "I want to leave a legacy. How will they remember me?"
Mm-hmm.
And then there's a song that came out just a year or two ago, and the words are literally, "I don't want to leave a legacy. I don't care how they remember me." And it's just so funny. And the purpose of the idea behind that first song was being missional intentional with your life, and so that when you reach the end of your life, you've accomplished something meaningful.
Yeah.
And the idea behind this newer song that's come out is basically, hey, it's not about me. I don't care what people think about me. I just want to obey the Lord in all that I do. It's interesting. In my earlier years, I was obsessed with making the most of every minute, adding value everywhere that I can for the Lord and things. And I think what I missed was something that Solomon figured out at the end of his life, because Solomon was a man who tried everything. He tried pleasure. He tried abstaining from pleasure. He tried buying anything money could buy. He tried, just tried everything. And at the end of it all, he was like, it all comes down to this: fear the Lord and obey his commandments. Find joy in the work that he's given you to do. And it's like, wow, no matter how busy, how fast we're running on the hamster wheel or what, it's like, there is value in just enjoying the relationship you have with the Lord. And, let that be what we're pursuing. And that doesn't necessarily mean running fast or not running fast. I think it means, walking with the Lord and understanding what he's empowered you to do, what he's called you to do, what opportunities he's put around you, and being faithful before the Lord and accountable to the Lord for that. Because he's the one at the end of the day that I'm going to stand before, and I want to hear, well done, good and faithful servant. Doesn't matter if my boss is proud of me, or if someone else thinks I'm a failure. I want to be in step with the Holy Spirit.
That's great. Thanks for sitting down with us. This is great. Episode 1, Season 2.
This has been awesome.
It'll be fun. Thanks, everyone. Make sure you hit notifications, subscribe, share this one with a friend. What was the phrase you used, Jay, this morning in service? I didn't memorize the second part.
Oh, Jay Masiki.
Jay Masiki. Jay Masiki, everyone.